Welcome to Making Peace with Food, session number one. We're so
Hello,
happy to have you
everyone.
here. Hello, hello. We're going to introduce ourselves in just a little bit, but I'm Cherie, and I'm joined by the fabulous Devin.
Hi,
And so
everyone. I'm
we are
Cherie's
excited to support
assistant.
you.
No,
No, we are co-facilitators. Matter of fact, let's just jump into our little introduction. So, Dev, you want to go first?
I'm sure. Hi, everyone. I am Devin. I am one of the health educators here at Kaiser. And I primarily help Cherie with making peace with food. And in addition, I do coordinate the surgical program as well as Healthy Balance with Cherie.
Yeah, we get to be a pair. It's so fun. So I'm Cherie, and I'm another health educator. And I have a passion for things like this, emotional eating, weight management, nutrition, all that stuff. And so it's such a pleasure to get to work with Devin. And we, as she mentioned, we get to do Making Peace with Food together and Healthy Balance. And then we do some other programs too. So one of the other programs I support is our plant-based program, the HALT program. So let's talk about what making peace with food is all about. In a nutshell, this is a four-part series that is designed to help you to understand emotional eating. So we spend a lot of time in this series really assessing our patterns. What are we eating? Why are we eating it? Is there a reason why maybe there's a trigger, some sort of event that is causing us to eat? So we really want to get to learn more about ourselves in this series. And then ultimately, we want to improve our relationship with food. So here's what each session is about. So today is all about cultivating a healthy relationship with food. And then next time we'll talk about triggers to eating and cognitive behavioral therapy. Then the third session is about body image and self-care. And it's a really interesting combination because it turns out that the better our body image is, the more likely we are to engage in taking care of ourselves. We'll also talk about how we can manage emotions without food. And then session four is intuitive eating. So, how can we tune into our body's cues to give our body what it needs? So, really learning to trust those cues again. So, during this process, we want to remember that it does take time. We have to be patient with ourselves. It's a learning experience. It's like learning how to ride a bike. So, Devin, I'm curious, when you learned how to ride a bike, what was that like for you?
It was very it took time and it took patience and it took patience with myself and it took a lot of encouragement to the about with the support people around me. So it's good to have a good support system, but you are your number one support person. So you have to remember to be kind to yourself. But I do remember that.
Yes. Yeah, me
It was also
too.
traumatizing. No, I'm just joking.
You know what? Same. I remember being on a bike with training wheels first, and then being upgraded to a bike. So once I figured out the steering, because I remember I thought I was steering left and I would go right. I was swerving all over the place. It was a hot mess. Then I was like, okay, I'm ready to not have the training wheels. So I was riding a regular bike and someone was holding on to me. And then I was like, okay, good. I got my support, just like you said. Then that person let go, and I didn't realize that that person let go until I was already like halfway around my little loop. When I saw that person wasn't there, I was like, ah.
Tilting
So,
over.
yeah, so it was like falling to the ground, some scrapes, had to dust myself off and try again. But one thing I do know about learning to ride a bike is I didn't judge myself. I didn't say, oh, I can't believe you can't ride a bike from the very beginning because that's not the way that it works. We have to learn how to do it.
And it is
But
a
our
process. Yes.
it is a process. Yeah. But it's interesting how we tend to judge ourselves about health-related behavior change. We say, "Oh, why wasn't I perfect from the beginning with my eating, with my physical activity, my stress management, my sleep? Why didn't I go to bed when I said I would? Why couldn't I fall asleep?" Whatever it is. How did I let my weight get here? I hear people say that all the time. But there are a lot of factors here, and whenever we make a change in our behavior, whether we're learning how to ride a bike, we're learning how to swim, we're learning how to eat healthy, we're learning how to be active, all of those things our brain treats the same way. We have to create new paths, and the only way we can create a new path is by trying again and again and again. So, when we're trying to make a new path in our brain, we do have to be consistent. And consistency in itself takes time to develop. And if we go on autopilot and we automatically go a different way because that's what we're used to, it's okay. Just have to get back on track and try again and try again. So giving ourselves grace is really important. But the goal is progress, not perfection. Perfection can be the enemy of progress because we can say, oh, I wasn't perfect. I'm just going to give up. But instead, like that kid and the bike, we want to dust ourselves off and try again. So, we do a lot of sharing in making peace with food because it really is important to reflect on how things are going and to share out and get that support. These sessions, we always have full sessions in making peace with food. And it doesn't have anything to do with us. It has to do with the topic being really important to so many people. And so please know that you're part of a bigger community, people who want to cultivate that healthy relationship. So some of the things we do when we share is we want to talk about or we want to reflect on what is working for us rather than I should have done this, I could have done that, I would have done this, because those are negative thought patterns, which we'll get into. Instead, what did work for us? So we want to focus on that. So during our first check-in, we really get to know each other. But let's think about what we want to get out of this and kind of set some mental intentions. What's important for us to get out of this? I'm wondering, Devin, if there is anything that you've heard people say is important to get out of this.
I think the main thing for people is that they really want to understand why they do emotional eat or what is emotional eating and what it
Yeah.
means to them personally. So and really just getting in tune with your emotions and your habits, whether it's food related, whether it's other habits you may have, lifestyle habits you may have. So I think that's the biggest one in terms of what to take away from this workshop.
Yeah. Yeah. So building those new thought processes, learning to be kind to ourselves. That's another thing that we commit to is that we are going to be patient. We are going to give ourselves grace. So really practicing that.
And that's a
T-
practice. That's definitely, like Cherie said, it's definitely about practice, and it's not about perfection. And so it does take time to learn how to be kind to yourself because we are our worst critics. And so learning how to get out of that habit in itself is hard. So.
yeah. Yeah. So so thank you for that, Devin. Just kind of summing up what tends to be really important for people in the group. So now it's time to dive into class one, relationship with food. And I love that we start right here, how to start building that healthy relationship. This process is a journey, and this journey continues beyond the 4 sessions, but let's kick it off. So, how do we start to have a healthier relationship with food? Well, the first thing we want to do, and this might sound counterintuitive, but it works. We want to give ourselves permission to eat what we want. So those are not just the things that are physically nourishing. Those are also those things that are emotionally satisfying. Because if we focus on just the nourishing things and we feel like, oh, I heard that this is healthy, so I'm just going to choke it down, that's not going to be sustainable for us. Food is an emotional experience. So we want to have positive emotions when it comes to our food. And so if we're just eating things because we feel like we have to, or that's the healthy food, that's not going to be sustainable for us. And we might even feel a little bit maybe frustrated about this journey, maybe resentful that we're on this journey. So instead, we want to have balance. We want to focus on foods that are both physically satisfying and emotionally satisfying. We, of course, don't want to just have those emotionally satisfying foods either, because we do want nourishment. We have health goals. That's why we're here. If we focus on just those emotionally satisfying foods, then that might be counterproductive for us. So we do need that balance there. And if we can make the physically satisfying foods also emotionally pleasing, then that's a huge win. But basically, to sum it up, all foods can fit into a healthy lifestyle. And to get us where we want to go, we want to spend a little extra time focusing on those really nourishing foods, but also give ourselves permission to have those emotionally satisfying foods. We are going to work on eliminating labels. And this is not the same as reading food labels. We're talking about those labels where we say, oh, this food's good and this food's bad. That one's my weakness. This one's my guilty pleasure. That one's forbidden. Because what happens is when we start assigning labels to food, then our brain does this funny thing where those more negative labels, like this is forbidden, guilty pleasure, our brain wants us to start having those foods. We start having more cravings for them because we have this rebellious teenager inside of us that's like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to have this." So now that's what I want. So
It's
our
like when you
cravings get
have that
ramped up.
child, you say, don't touch that. And the
Yeah.
first thing they want to do is touch that. So we want to
Yeah.
get out of that mindset. We don't realize as adults, we still have that inner child that wants to rebel.
Yeah. So imagine if we tell that person, "Oh, you can have that." Oh, well, now it's not as exciting. It's like that family member. I don't know if you have this, Evan, but that person who wants to sneak food off of your plate, and you're like, "Go ahead," and they're like, "Okay, well, that took away
Well,
the
that's not
excitement of it."
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the thrill of doing something we feel like we're not supposed to do. So if we take that thrill away, well, all of a sudden I can have it if I want. I'm just choosing not to because I have all of these bigger goals in mind. So we're taking away those food labels to reduce the risk of getting into emotional eating with those foods. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
And giving yourself an equal playing ground, just starting off, with
Yeah.
everything meaning the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And we really do spend a lot of time just thinking about why do I do what I do? So we want to observe how we choose the foods that we eat, why we choose these foods, when we choose them, all those things. And as we get to know ourselves a little bit better, then we can experience more food freedom because even though we're on this journey for maybe for our health goals, maybe it's weight management, maybe it's just feeling better overall. We are more than that. We're more than our weight. We're more than whatever conditions we're trying to improve. We are much more than that. So we want to have better quality of life. We don't want our weight or our health to have to be top of mind all the time. So we want to experience more freedom in life and better quality of life. And being on this journey can help us to do that. So let's talk about some eating disorder statistics. A lot of people struggle with eating disorders. They're a modern day epidemic. So, here's some data from the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, or ANAD. According to this association, at least 30 million people of all ages and genders in the US suffer with an eating disorder. And almost another 30 million people suffer specifically with binge eating disorders sometime in their lifetime. Those are huge numbers. So we want you to just kind of sit with that for a while. 30 million people. That's a lot of people.
A lot of people. And it's not only when you think of eating
Yeah.
disorders, you only think of anorexia or bulimia, but there's a lot of different disorders out there.
Yeah. And while these numbers are staggering, I think the thing that we really want to focus on or emphasize is that you're not alone. If you find that you're struggling with an eating disorder, you are not alone. And this also means there's a lot of support out there to get you through this. Eating disorders can be treated and they can be resolved. So that's good news. And in your handouts, there are phone numbers that you can call to get support, including from our integrated behavioral health department. Now, over half of people with binge eating disorder have depression or anxiety. And so, working with a mental health professional on this journey is really powerful. We don't want to just start this process and just start to dig into it and then leave some things unresolved. We really want to dive deep because when it comes to eating disorders, when it comes to emotional eating, there are usually some deeper things at play.
Mm.
So really getting in there and doing that deeper work is really helpful for making sure that we don't have a recurrence of emotional eating and of eating disorders. So let's talk about some of these things in more detail. Well, what is binge eating disorder? Binge eating disorder is when there are recurrent episodes of binge eating. And it has to occur at least once a week for 3 months. That's what defines binge eating disorder. So we might have a binge eating episode, like, for example, feeling like maybe we overdid it, maybe Thanksgiving, or maybe we had a really rough day and we just went to town. So that's a little bit different from having this being something recurrent. But either way, what happens is that an event triggers it. And binge eating, it occurs in private because there are some feelings of shame, guilt, those kinds of things that come with it. People who experience binge eating, they tend to feel like they're having an out of body experience. So there's that lack of control. Like, I just ate all of this food and then I just kind of come to and I'm like, what happened? And the foods that people tend to binge on are the ones that have those labels like my guilty pleasure, my weakness. This food is bad. This is a forbidden food. So, taking away the labels can really help to reduce binge eating. And the binge eating episode ends with feeling really uncomfortable, both physically and emotionally. One form of binge eating disorder is night eating syndrome, and it's really interesting how common it is. 1 in 100 people experience night eating syndrome. So, night eating syndrome is when someone, after their evening meal, they still consume about 25% of their total daily calories. So, that's a lot to eat 25% of your calories after your last meal. So, people with night eating syndrome wake up in the middle of the night and have such a strong desire to eat that they aren't able to go back to sleep until they've eaten something. And because they're eating late at night or it's waking them up, it's going to disrupt their circadian rhythm. So if you're experiencing night eating syndrome, binge eating disorder, there is support. The integrated behavioral health team can support you through this. We saw that binge eating disorder is strongly associated with anxiety and depression. And so, getting support for anxiety and depression is really important on this journey, too, and just general stress management strategies. So, we know that stress is when we feel like we have there's this perceived threat or challenge, and we don't feel like we have the resources internally to deal with it. So, mentally or physically. And then depression, that tends to be discouragement about what's happened in the past. It can leave us feeling sad, down. The things that used to give us pleasure might not anymore. And then anxiety tends to be related to things in the future, feeling so much worry that there are things that are out of our control.
And it's good to try and dive deep and look at those issues first because you really get to the root cause of why you may be an emotional eater and why you may get triggered to eat because of those. So if you resolve those first, or if you take care of those first, then you can take care of the above lying problem, which are things like binge eating and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way you put that, the above lying problem, because it is kind of like a glacier where like the part that we see on
Like
top
a
is just a small part, but it's really
Yeah,
like there's so much more under the surface that needs to be addressed. And so by doing that deeper work, then we can address the whole thing instead of just
the
looking
top.
at the,
Hoping the
yeah,
top melts.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So the reason why we talk about all of these things is to provide some context. All of these various really strong emotions that we feel can trigger emotional eating. So, emotional eating, it's when we use food as a band-aid. We're using food to cover or suppress intense emotions. And these emotions don't just have to be the ones that are considered to be more of the kind of negative emotions, like sadness, anxiety, worry, grief. It could also be celebrations. So feeling happiness. Maybe we get to see some family members that we haven't seen in a long time. Maybe it's a holiday. Maybe it's a birthday. So all of these different things can lead to emotional eating. But maybe there are some other reasons why we eat that are not listed here. So think about what are
definitely.
some other reasons? Yeah,
Yeah.
what are some other
What else?
things?
What else would it be? Maybe boredom. I know a lot of
Yeah,
people, and definitely just preoccupation. Maybe you're watching a movie and you feel the
yeah.
need to you have that emotional attachment to eating popcorn when you're watching a movie. So there's a lot of different emotions. They don't have to be extreme. They can just be something that you're used to doing, a habit you currently
Right.
have.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it's interesting how just habits can lead to this kind of automatic chain of events. And so becoming aware of that, it can help us to disrupt that chain. So there is some really interesting research out there that says when we focus on, or when we spend more time on the things that give us value, meaning, and purpose in life, we don't have to fill whatever void we're feeling with food. Because if we think about what emotional eating is, it's a temporary coping strategy. That's really what it is. It's just temporary. Um, but what we really want to feel are the long lasting effects. We want to feel good. We want to feel resolved. We want to feel at ease. Food just temporarily does that. And food is the most common self-soothing tool. But now we're wanting to dive a little deeper and say, okay, what is really the source of that void? There is a quote that I think is really helpful for thinking about this. If food is not the problem, then food is not the solution. So if I'm feeling lonely, then I need to do something to feel less lonely. If I'm feeling tired, then I need to get rest. If I'm feeling stressed out, then I need stress management strategies. Food is just that band-aid, but it's not actually helping to resolve those feelings in a permanent way. So when we focus on those things that give us value, meaning, and purpose in our lives, then they can fill that void in a more permanent way so that we have less desire to emotionally eat. So here's a common list of things that give people value, meaning, and purpose. And so just spend a little bit of time looking at this list. You've got relationships, family, friends, spirituality. That it might be religion. It might be spending time in nature, focusing on any type of higher power. Community, that might be your pickleball team. That might be your maybe it's a church group. Maybe it's a group of parents that to get together. It could be any type of community that you feel.
Ooh, pickleball. You said pickleball. Is that your newest thing, Cherie? No.
I want it to be. I bought the set. I want it to be my new thing. Deb, you want to play with me sometime?
Yes, we are going to try.
We're gonna try. And then maybe it's your career. So maybe you're really excited about your professional growth. Maybe it's personal growth, wellness, self-care. I imagine that everyone who joins Making Peace with Food has that as something that gives them value, meaning, and purpose. And also your health, physical and mental. Maybe it's going on adventures. Maybe you love to travel. Maybe you like to do things in the ocean, all sorts of stuff. So think about what is most important to you here. And now, what we want to reflect on is what do you value? Thinking about that list. And then, do you feel like you have enough time for the things that you value? How are you spending your time? Are you giving those things sufficient attention? And if not, that's where this void tends to form. So we want to commit to spending more time on the things that give us value, meaning, and purpose.
So, Cherie, what do you value? And do you spend enough time um, for yourself and what you value?
Hmm. Well, I value personal connections. I've been trying to commit to that on the weekends. Um, I also value adventures, and I haven't been doing that enough. I tend to wait until I have a chance to like go on vacation, but I really should find ways to do like mini adventures, like playing pickleball. No, I'm just joking. No, but
But I
something
think that's so
small.
important that you recognize that where your deficiency is or where you do need to improve it, and that'll help you recognize those things and bring more value to it, or um, it makes you more aware and less
Yeah,
numb to what to mask it with food or with however else. So
yeah. And what about you? What is something that, or what are the top things for you?
you stole mine. No, I'm just
What?
joking.
No, I'm kidding.
I value my friendships. I really think that it's important to cultivate your friendships because as we get older and everybody goes through their lives, we all have different priorities in day-to-day life. But
Yeah,
remembering who's important to you and trying to take the time to spend as hard as it is to make time for people, to really spend time with them. And so sometimes that includes, getting together with a friend and maybe having um, having a meal with them, and really if you do that, you're more likely to not do mindless eating, and because your intention is to really spend time with somebody, then you tend to not focus on the food, you tend to focus on the relationship. So yeah, definitely relationships, I would say. And I agree, personal time, adventures, and trying to keep us young, keep
yeah.
ourselves young. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I love what you're saying about um making gatherings with other people about the connection time
Rather
more
than the
so than the
focus being
food.
on what is the gathering about, is it a food, is it a party, is it drinks, but really when you get together with those people and just appreciating the time you spend with them, I think is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, so shifting that focus. That's cool. Oh, thanks for sharing that. So many people find that they don't feel they're spending enough time on the things that are their top priorities. But when we reflect on how those priorities, how those different things, those values, how they make us feel, the idea of going on an adventure makes me happy. It makes me smile automatically. It gets me into this like, okay, I can't wait. I can't wait to plan something. Or the idea of spending time with friends is so exciting. It brings me joy. And those are the feelings we're trying to get from food. But the thing is, the feeling with food, it's just fleeting. We might feel that way at first, but then what tends to happen is our mood shifts the opposite way. So then we can feel those feelings of guilt, like, ah, I wish I hadn't indulged in whatever it might be. So to get those sustained feelings of joy, of pleasure, of happiness, we want to find ways to spend more time on the things that we value. So that's what we're going to work on next is creating an action plan. And this action plan is just a baby step. We're not saying we're creating a big old plan to go on vacation every month.
That would be nice, but yeah, we want to create plans that are really, are realistic and that you can sustain over a long period of time. You don't want to just try
Yeah.
and pigeonhole yourself into this. I'm going to make this plan, and if it doesn't work, and then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So yeah, definitely SMART goals are the way to start off.
Yeah. So when we create our SMART goal, we want it to be something really specific. So specific that we can visualize ourselves doing it. Because the more we can visualize ourselves doing it, the better the mental image is, the more likely we really are to do it. Research in sports psychology, it shows how powerful visualization is. So when people visualize themselves being successful in sports, then they tend to be more successful because their brain has already done the work of practicing whatever behaviors it was that they wanted to achieve. So the more specific, the better. Then we want our goal to be measurable. So, for example, if I say, I want to drink more water, just throwing out, I know that that's not at all related to
That's a good
adventure.
goal there. That's a good
But as
goal though.
yeah, so we might say, okay, um, I, how much more water am I going to drink? Rather than just more, because one drop more could be more. But how much more so that I know when I've reached my goal? Or if I tie it back to adventures. So maybe I create a little adventure calendar and I say, okay, 2 days a week, I want to go on a mini adventure and I really map out what that's going to look like. And to make it specific, I would say exactly what activities I want to do, exactly what days, what time of day, all that stuff. So I can
And the more
imagine myself
measurable
doing
you
it.
make it, the more likely you are to want to meet that goal that you set for yourself.
Yeah. And then there's that feeling of reward too, because it's like checked that box. So that can
Yeah.
feel really great. And we want it to be achievable. And not just achievable in general, but like achievable right now, because we want to start this right now. So, is this something I can realistically do? Well, realistic is next, but is this something that I can achieve right now? Because we want to get this started. We don't want to delay.
Yes, we want to go on adventures every month, but is that really achievable? No. Maybe if Kaiser gives me
No.
$100,000 raise. No, I'm just joking, you guys. But yeah, is it achievable now, now in your current state of life? Because we'd all like to do things like if your goal is to exercise more, we'd all love to
Yeah,
go to the gym 5 times a week, but is that really achievable?
right.
Maybe just starting with a really small goal, like my measurable I will measure that I will go at least once a week, you know? So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which brings up
And
realistic, right?
yes. And maybe to make things realistic, we want to have a menu of options. So we might say, well, what's my contingency plan? If I can't go to the gym, then I can go for a walk. If I can't go for a walk, or if I don't feel like going for a walk, maybe I'll go to Zumba, or maybe I'll take advantage of our Fit Rewards program.
There you go. Or
Shameless plug.
going back to Cherie's adventure, if I can't travel every month, maybe I'll do a staycation in a hotel in town or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can come up with all sorts of different things to feel like we're making this more realistic for us. And also, when it comes to making it realistic, is this aligned with the things that give me value, meaning, and purpose? Or is this just something
Yeah.
that someone told me I should do? Like, I'm gonna exercise 150 minutes a week because my doctor told me I have to.
Because Kaiser says so. No.
Kaiser said so. So, but is that realistic for me? Is that where I am at this point of my life? And if not, that's okay because you know yourself best. So, this is all about you and what you want to do for yourself. And then timed. So, we are giving ourselves a week to experiment with this. And we use the word experiment because experiments can go either way. They might go without a hitch, or we might find, okay, that experiment does not fit in my life right now. Either way, it's a win because we tried something new. So we're just gathering data, seeing what worked, and then we can always go back to the drawing board, and that's totally fine.
And
So,
you're
what
never
will
a
you
failure
do?
too, right, Sheree?
Yeah,
If you don't meet
right,
your SMART goal, just know exactly what she said. You can always go back and say, "This is not working for me this week. What else can I do to find, those things that are important to me, those values that are important to me? What else can I do?" If you don't use that SMART goal, there's always a way to change that up. So don't ever feel like
yeah.
you're failing just because you don't meet the one goal you made.
Right. Because the fact that you're committing to attending these sessions is a win in itself. You could be
Yes.
doing any other things with your time, but you are choosing to be here because that's important for you. So, really taking time to celebrate and acknowledge all of the wins. So, what will you do? What is your baby step that you want to commit to over this next week? Take a moment to think about that. And now we'll just do a review of what we covered during this session. So, today we covered relationship with food, how to start cultivating a healthy relationship. We said all foods can fit into a healthy lifestyle. We said we want to take away those food labels because those are just going to be the ones that we want to dive into if we're experiencing emotional eating. So we're taking away the labels, and we're starting to observe our patterns. So we talked a little bit about binge eating, night eating syndrome, stress, anxiety, and depression. We also talked about the importance of value, meaning, and purpose, those things that give us joy. And when we focus on those things, we're less likely to engage in emotional eating. So next week, oh, and we created a little action plan just now. So next week, we're going to follow up on how your action plan went. And we're going to get more in depth into triggers for eating and how to practice alternative behaviors. So we appreciate your time and we want you to take good care of yourself until next time. Don't forget that there are tools to support your emotional wellness. As Kaiser members, you get premium access to these apps at no additional cost. The Calm app is the #1 app for meditation and sleep. And Headspace Care lets you text an emotional support coach to get support with basically making behavior change. It's similar to wellness coaching. So it's like getting a wellness coach, but texting that person. If you would
So
prefer to have a,
definitely, if you
yeah,
want to get that individual help, you can always go to Headspace Care or meet individually with one of the health coaches here at Kaiser as well.
yeah, yeah. So if you prefer talking over the phone, that's what we're all about. By the way, accessing these apps, you go to kp.org/self-care apps, and that's how you can download them. If you need more help, and this information is in the handouts we provide with this series, feel free to check out these resources. Behavioral health, there's their phone number, kp.org/mental health. And then Department of Hawaii, or Department of Health Hawaii Cares access line. Also, the National Suicide Hotline and the Crisis Text line. Those are all available to you. Also, lots of other resources. So feel free to pause this recording here to access these or check out your handouts. And also, we want you to be safe. So stay vigilant, stay safe, continue to wash your hands and distance.
Wash your hands, yeah. We all need that reminder sometimes, but yes, it is
20
important.
seconds.
COVID is still out there. Not only COVID, but there's a lot of things circulating around, especially depending on what time of year it is. It's always good to just protect yourself, whether even if you wear a mask or you don't, whether you believe in vaccinations or you don't, it's important to really protect yourselves. And number one way, washing your hands. We learned that in kindergarten, preschool.
Yeah, 20 seconds. And then finally, thank you for your time today. And we look forward to having you back for our next session. So
Thank
take
you guys
care,
for joining
everyone.
us. Yes, take care.
Mahalo.